of
All
content?
right, so Q&A always. So what we do here, what you watch on our stuff, makes it really easy to dissect content, ask a question, give an answer. Anecdotal, soundbite slash distilling down answers into simple sentences, and then reiterating or building on that is very important.
Catchphrases.
Catchphrases, yep,
Yeah.
catchphrases. Get your stories right and know where your stories fit. I have stories that are knee-jerk reactions. Someone says something, I tell a story. I've got my Cisco story, if you haven't heard, I'm sure I've told it, about their first virtual event. I've got my Gowlings and Walmart story about their webinar. Like, I've got these stories that are real, true-to-life examples that I use. And then I've got my anecdotes where I relate the real world to B2B and that sort of thing, and I go back on them all the time. And you want to get those right. And actually, we should link to it or however we do this, but we did a webinar with Ron Tite called The Art of Storytelling, where a lot of people feel like they don't have stories because they haven't gone out and done formal case studies, or they haven't been around for a very long time. And he gives 45 minutes of tips and tricks that's broken down into 5-minute segments on our YouTube site that talks to you about how we all have stories. There's stories everywhere to help tell your story, whether it's yours or he brought up the Blue Man Group and said, I don't know anything about the Blue Man Group. They have nothing to do with me. I use the Blue Man Group story all the time. I don't even remember that story, but he does use that all the time. And so you want to get good at telling your stories, because that is those are great hooks to bring people in, and they're things that people remember sort of about you. And then the final thing that I will say, and now I'm looking at a clock because it is there and we don't want to go over, is, and you know this, because although we had done the ROI thing and you came in and pitched us on this podcast and we had this plan, is you got to have the machine set up if it's going to be effective, right? You got to know where it goes after we leave here. So it goes in, starts getting post-produced. Where does it go to become the webinar? Where does it go to become the podcast? Who's going to start writing the blogs or whatever other thing you want to do? Who's doing that, and when does it need to be done? Because if not, you can produce a great piece of content like this, and it cannot do any of these things that you would love to do. So you got to build the machine, and it's not that hard. It could be, ours is like 3 or 4 people total, but you got to build the machine if you're going to do it, or know where on the assembly line does this go next, so that it can become useful.